John Shelton provides remarkable and radical new information. This affects three main areas: the Ministry of Defence, the Health Service, and the upper levels of Freemasonry. As with all AMMACH witnesses, they give their statements freely. But by the very nature of these statements, we cannot explain or verify these claims at the time of recording. As Shelton's statements concern mass abduction of British troops in World War I, issues in the police, the MOD, and the Health Service, perhaps there are others who can shed some light on his claims. Shelton also states he has remote viewed his own death in a matter of weeks. So this interview was arranged under some haste and urgency. It is presented in three parts. The interview is by Joanne Summerscales, with some interruption off camera by myself.
Hello and welcome to another AMMACH interview here at Avondale Studios. We are most fortunate to have with us a lovely gentleman who's come all the way from the East Midlands. Welcome please, John Shelton, who has some very interesting things to tell you. John, welcome to our studios, and please, you've got a whole life full of information of all kinds. It cuts through the military, through the ET, through NHS abuse, and I really want us to start right at the beginning. So, John, do you mind if we start? You were a little and...
Right. I was born in December 1962 into a military family.
Right.
My father at the time was a chef in the Army Catering Corps. I travelled mostly across Europe, Norway, Belgium and West Germany.
Right.
I had my first anomalous experience in about 1965, just prior to us going to Oslo, Norway. We were actually stationed in Arborfield near Reading, just north of London.
So does this make you just short of 3 years old then, John?
That would be about right, yes. I was out walking with my mother. She left me outside to play, and I had a very strange experience where I experienced a very high-pitched sound around me.
Right.
And I blacked out. And when I came to, my right leg was embedded in a wall from the calf downwards in a very low partition wall, brick wall.
So how low are we talking this wall, John?
About 2 feet high,
Okay.
maybe 3 feet at the most.
And had you been walking near this wall when you...
Yes, I'd been right next to it. It had been on my right hand side.
Was your mother in the location, in the vicinity at the time?
No.
Right, so you had been with her, is that
I
right?
had, yeah, that's right, I'd been with her, yeah.
You'd been with her, you had this blacking out and you woke up with your right leg, did you say, sorry?
Yes, right
Yeah.
leg cemented into the wall.
Right, gosh, were you in pain?
No, I wasn't. The wall that was actually moulded around my leg
Right.
had gone literally through cement and brick.
So
it was,
were you in a situation to actually see the rest of your leg or your foot? The
yeah, I
other
could
side?
see my other leg on the other side. Some workmen had to be called to demolish the wall.
I mean, were you seen by a passerby? Did the police come? What happened? How did that...
I was spotted by my father.
Oh, okay.
Some workmen was summoned, and they had to actually take equipment out and come and demolish the top of the wall and actually release my leg. There was a second incident. I was actually playing in a sand pit, very much adjacent to the property we lived in, the married soldiers' quarters.
Again, are you around the same age group?
Yes, I'd be about the same sort of time. I remember playing in the sand pit, and then there being another high-pitched tone and blacking out, and I suddenly found myself inside a storage cupboard in the kitchen.
At home now?
Yeah, at home, yes.
At home.
I had absolutely no idea I got there. It's clearly I hadn't walked there, because I literally blacked out and then come to instantly.
Yeah. And as a little child, would you normally go inside and into this cupboard? Well, was
No,
it just
absolutely not.
Cupboard,
No, it was storage cupboard where food was kept in the kitchen.
So you'd have you would never go in there normally?
No, not at all. No.
Okay, and how were you found in that situation?
Well, I was standing upright in this cupboard, and I thought, how have I got here? Then I heard my mother talking on the other side. I pushed the door open from the inside out.
Okay.
First of many enormous experiences I've had.
Yes, I mean, going back to the leg being embedded in the wall, I'm just thinking that just puts me in mind of the Philadelphia experiment, that dimensional shifting.
Yes, I mean, at the time, obviously I was very, very young. I was only about 3 years old. I'd never heard of this Philadelphia experience.
Of course, it's just current times. It puts me in mind of that. So, is that the only time you've had such an experience of that kind of anomalous event?
Of actually waking up embedded in a wall, yes.
My Lord, John. I mean, I have to say, I've never heard of that one before. So do continue, because I know at this young age you did seem to have quite a lot happen to you around that age, and of course, remember you're in an army family situation, so you're in an army scenario, educationally and everything.
Oh, that's right. We were posted to Norway the year after. In 1967, I was playing in a sandpit in a school.
Right.
In near Oslo in Norway. I recall looking down at the ground and seeing the ground recede away from me.
So you were on your tummy?
Well, I was sort of kneeling down and then hovering over other school children who were playing in the sandpit at about 12 feet height.
So they'd be looking at you, they'd be seeing you?
Yeah, they were looking up at me and I was sort of up there and they were down here.
And did you feel or hear anything in that circumstance?
No, I didn't hear anything at the time, but I recall teachers sort of looking at me and pointing at me as I was like above them, looking down at them.
Gosh.
And trying to grab hold of my little belt and sort of draw me down to the ground level again.
And they did that?
Yes.
And did you stay on the ground when you...
I've not had any repeats of that in those circumstances.
Well, what happened then, immediately after that levitation incident? Were you, would they question you? Were you...
No, I mean, I can't recall anything else being said at the time.
Right.
I don't know what reaction my parents was, so I've never really talked to them about it.
Right.
But I had another very odd experience slightly later on. My father took me on a Sunday drive in his car ostensibly to the dentist. Now that's a bit odd really, because dentists don't work on a Sunday.
I mean, did you all often go for drives with your dad?
In his car, that's fairly true actually.
Right.
We did.
So that was kind of a normal event.
A normal event, yeah.
But not the dentist.
No. I mean, I thought that's a bit of an odd excuse really. I mean, dentists don't work on a Sunday.
Okay.
Not that I was aware of at the time.
So you'd be what age around about?
About 4 and a bit,
about
5 years old.
Still very young.
Yeah. I was taken to Kolsas military base outside Oslo.
Kolsas, is it?
Kolsas.
Okay.
Yeah. My father took me into the base. I was taken to a building in the base, and I was introduced to some United States Air Force personnel who made me feel reasonably at ease. I was then put into a chair that resembled a dentist chair, but it wasn't a dentist chair.
Right.
It had wrist clamps on it. I was asked to lie back in the chair and lay my hands out on the arms, and my hands were pressed into clamps on the arms. I was made to look at a massive TV screen in front of me on 3 stilts.
And where was your dad during this time?
I couldn't see him. I thought he was behind me, but I was left, I think, with these United States Air Force personnel.
How many were there of the personnel?
There were 3 actually. 3. Yeah.
Okay.
3 of them.
Joanne, was that a plasma screen?
No. This was in 1967, 1968. It was a very, very old TV, but it was resembled what was introduced in the 1980s, a flat square tube type TV. I mean, I'd never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like it since either. It didn't resemble any of the more bulbous round tube type TVs that were around at the time. Anyway, on it they start showing me diagrams, pyramids, lines, circles, flashing lights, and then war scenes of death and destruction, war, scenes of people being tortured, mutilated, and then more lines zigzagging across the screen. I remember the screen flickering right into my eyes, and then I remember passing out.
And were there colours as well that they
Yes.
they used?
Yeah, they were using different colours, like a disco.
Okay. And these shapes, like symbols, I guess.
Yeah, symbols.
I'll call them symbols. All kinds of different geometric shapes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, long lines, circles, ovoids,
What
pyramids.
kind of lines were there across the screen? Because this is symptomatic of direct access of signals into the brain. It can cause that kind of vision.
Yeah, I mean there were lines streaking across, up and down, streaking across at an angle, 45-degree angle. O's appearing and dissolving, and then flickering back into shape again. Then suddenly vibrating on the screen, and then going.
And what were the sounds like accompanying this, or were there any?
Yes, there were sort of psychedelic sounds with it as well. Sort of swooshing psychedelic sounds, a bit like a child hears in the womb.
Okay, well that's interesting.
Mm.
Yeah, and what about the war scenes? Do you recall from that long time ago what you were seeing? Would you?
Yes, there were scenes of First World War scenes of mass death, of infantry charges with massive amount of manslaughter going on. It was
Were you aware
very
of which side was being slaughtered? Was that?
They were principally British infantry who were being manslaughtered by the Germans.
Right.
It didn't really register in my brain at the time, the gravity of what I was looking at. But I was actually shown similar scenes much later on in the 1980s, and obviously by then, it did register.
So in that film would have been German film.
No, I think it was shot from the British side actually.
So you're seeing British soldiers being killed, infantry, First World War. Did you see the next World War?
There was some footage of World War II, D-Day.
Right.
And a lot of British dead on Sword Beach, which is, you're probably aware, with the landing beach at
Yes.
British landed on Juno Beach as well, and some Americans on Omaha Beach.
Right.
Sort of panning across the dead, looking up towards the headland that they'd taken.
Okay.
Now, there was a huge massacre of troops in World War II, and a lot of their bodies ended up being buried near bent borders.
Really?
There was a major catastrophe, which was kept secret. Was that referring to that?
I don't think so, actually. I don't think so.
Right. So you're seeing the war scenes, First World War, Second World War. Any other images apart from the colours, the symbols, the flashing lights?
Not at the time. As I said, I actually
I
passed out.
Right. Do you, you're a little, I know, but did you have any sense of time passing, about how much time would pass?
I was looking at the screen for about 20 minutes, I think, in total.
That's your sense. Okay. So then you are aware that you would pass, or had passed out, and then what's the next?
The next thing I remember, I was sitting on the passenger seat in my dad's car, and we were being driven out of the base. And that's really the last experience I had in
that area.
In that area.
And did your dad explain, or did you talk to your dad about what
No,
it
he
was,
didn't say anything about it at all.
So was it just a sort of an agreement to be silent about it, or was it just...
Well, he kept stum about the whole affair. He's said nothing about it to me since.
Okay.
Because
clearly it wasn't the dentist.
No, I mean, my dad was working as an aide-de-camp, really, and personal cook to General Darling, a Fusilier General who was one of the British commanders of the Northern Area Group Command in Oslo. British forces in Norway, and I got to know General Darling reasonably well.
Right.
He in fact used to let me roam around his office. At weekends my father would take me there, and I'd often talk to General Darling.
Right. What, do you know, was it about anything that you would say today would be significant, or was it...
Yeah, he used to talk to me about a lot of military things, and he'd occasionally sort of put files underneath my nose and let me have a look at things. Even though I was only 6 years old.
Yeah, you'd be... Wow, they must have thought that you had something about you that you needed perhaps to know that would perhaps come back later, I'm guessing. you know, in your memory?
I think so, yeah. I think so.
Do you recall what sort of material would be shown to you then?
It was about troop dispositions and material to do with the Russians.
Right, okay.
Stuff to do with Copenhagen in Denmark as well.
Which I'm
about
guessing
material being moved from Oslo to Copenhagen, and then Russians being involved, that kind of stuff.
Did it have any meaning for you then as a child? Were you was it anything that had any relevance for you?
Not really at the time.
Yeah.
I didn't realise until really the 2000s.
Yeah.
The significance of it.
Right. Okay. All right. I just want to quickly reference your father at this point, because often anomalous events are generational, and I know in some previous chat you had told me that your dad had quite a few anomalous events himself. Perhaps you could just give us a little look at some of those events that happened to him.
Yes, my father had a lot of problems to do with sleepwalking.
Oh right, yes.
During his early years and his teenage years,
sort of
until he started work and then he joined the military, he had really severe sleepwalking problems. A bolt had to be put on the outside of his bedroom door in order to prevent him escaping. During the night, he was found walking in fields of crop. Mm-hmm. Also, he was found walking along the street, and also in a shop. He somehow managed to get into a shop. He was found actually inside a shop. I mean, it's amazing, really, how he got there.
Because that shop, if it's the same event I'm thinking about that you mentioned, it was a post office, and he was found naked on a counter.
Yes,
or
right.
He was,
yeah.
and that would have been a locked up.
Yeah, I've asked
location.
him since about this event, and he says he recalls seeing a lot of white flashing lights through the curtains.
Right.
His bedroom window. I mean, it's possible it relates to an abduction event.
Yes, and they plopped him down in a wrong location, perhaps. Maybe that.
So
does he talk about anything along those lines, or is he closed to that, or is he able to?
A little bit from that era, but mainly about his experience of when he's been a Christian church minister.
Right. So after the army, he became is it a lay minister?
He's a non-denominational minister.
Okay. Have you been able to talk to him about any of your experiences?
Yes, I have. I regularly communicate with him a couple of times every week, actually, about them.
What's his attitude to them? How does he feel about them?
I'm not sure, really. I've spoken to him about his own experiences, and he's had a lot of Christian-related experiences to do with visions and that kind of thing.
Are they positive images? Are they?
Yes. Yeah, there seem to be positive images of him with relatives.
Okay.
And that kind of thing.
So it sounds like he too is very. The veil for him is very thin, and he's able to access that very easily, like yourself.
Indeed, so.
So what about mum and you've got a sister? Is there anything in the family in their respect that is anything linked with the anomalous events that you've had, or?
Not really on my mother's side or my sister's side.
Right.
But I say there's a dichotomous split in our family between my father, myself, and my sister and my mother.
Right. Okay.
My mother is blood group O positive.
Right.
My sister is also, I think, blood group O positive. My father is blood group O negative.
Right.
And I'm also blood group O negative.
All right. Okay.
And
which certainly is a factor in some of this story.
Yes.
Down the line. So let's go back to some of these events. Let's just take us back to, you've been in Oslo. You're now moving where? Where are we moving from Oslo? Because you've had your time at school in Oslo, and where does that take you?
Sometime later in 1973, we were posted to West Germany, to Sandlager.
All right. Okay.
I remember one very strange event. We were very close to being posted back to the United Kingdom.
Right.
I was at John Buchan's school. It was a newly opened middle school for 11 to 13 age group.
Was this a military school?
Yes, it was a military school, yes.
Mm-hmm.
the whole school was gathering round outside. We were about to look at a glider land. My class teacher, Miss Story, had been taking gliding lessons, and she'd actually persuaded an instructor to bring a glider with her, fly a glider into one of the school playing fields, the rugby pitch.
For you all guys to have a look at.
That's right, yeah.
Lovely. Was it a mixed school, John?
Yes, it was a mixed school, male-female.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, carry on.
Anyway, the glider landed, and you know, we were all kind of very much enamoured with it. We were looking around it, looking at the cockpit, looking at the controls, and suddenly in the far distance, up in the sky, about 2 miles away, there was a flying disc appeared. The flying disc was seen by literally about 350 people in total.
Right, okay. And the teachers
included. And it was there for nearly half an hour.
Right. Did it come any closer, or did it stay at that distance?
No, it was a grey disc. It stayed about 2 miles away. It was about 45-degree angle up in the sky, so you could quite clearly see it.
Yeah.
It just hovered there, and eventually it moved off. And after that, we started being shown both Masonic and Scientological film footage.
So can I just sorry to interrupt you, John. I just wanted to clarify that point, because I know when we had a chat before, you said that there was actually an announcement made by the teachers, like at an assembly kind of grouping, where the school was then effectively split into 2 groups, and the teachers made the statement that they were Scientologists and Masons. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
So from that point, they then divided the school into half, and tell us from that point then what would happen from that.
Right. I mean, half the school was shown one lot of footage, and the other half was shown another lot of footage. I was actually shown both.
Okay.
I saw one time and another at a later date.
Was that unusual?
Yes, I think I was the only person who was actually selected to see both.
Okay.
With elements of footage,
right.
film footage. We were shown film footage of beings coming to Earth and defeating the dinosaurs, and then crossbreeding with dinosaur hybrids.
So
Scientological footage and Masonic footage of the Cotopaxi incident, which is very, very well understood by Masons.
So we're talking to John about his middle school in Germany called the John Buchan School, and I just want to take John back to some detail of the images that were shown and get some detail from those, because they're very important to hear the level of mind control that has been used on these children, and indeed we'll hear some of the fallout from that down the line. So John, back to you. I know you said you were being shown footage of is it aliens, is that correct, coming to the planet? And what did they look like? I know you were talking about they were interbreeding. Interbreeding,
they were vaguely dinosaur-like.
So the aliens were dinosaur-like?
Yes, that's right, reptoid dinosaur type.
And what were they doing on the planet?
They were making living space for themselves by occupying certain areas on the planet. And they were killing some dinosaurs and interbreeding with other ones. They were selecting what type of dinosaur to breed with. And
so you were being shown this. Was this in animation, or was this sort of?
Yeah, it was stop go, old-fashioned stop go type footage as opposed to animation. There was no animation involved actually.
Okay.
In the sense of it wasn't a cartoon. It was actually stop go.
Right.
Stuff, you know.
So like models of these creatures. Yeah. Okay. And how were there humans around at this point that these beings, these entities, were interacting with, or?
No, it was showing you how they were developing into ancient humans.
Oh, okay.
So Cro-Magnon or Neanderthal, and then into Homo erectus, and it showed you Homo habilis and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Are you all right with this light, Miles? I'm sorry, it's just wearing the...
Yeah, no, I think it's important to note that we are getting electrical interference on the lights.
Yes, I'm getting blasted. Yeah. I mean, that's fine. I'm happy to continue, but it's just...
the lighting, all the lighting has...
It's pulsing. Flickered. It's been pulsing at me, so if you're happy with that, I'll just continue. It stopped pulsing now, but it was pulsing.
Yeah, it's just a symptom of maybe we have company, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if we continue...
All right, so John, So starting again. So we are seeing reptilian beings landing. This is what you're being shown as 11 to 13-year-olds. Is this the age range?
Right, yeah.
Okay. So I just really want to establish what we're being shown here. So it's creatures coming to the planet in spaceships that are reptoid in nature, that are then crossbreeding
with dinosaurs. Yeah.
With dinosaurs, and then you see a progression to human beings.
Into the modern human being, yeah.
All right, well that's pretty dramatic.
It's not what is understood today scientifically, or is it? Is the question.
Yeah.
We're also shown a lot of Masonic footage as well relating to UFO incidents and claimed footage from the Battle of Mons in the First World War of the Angel of Mons. It is shown within masonry as a landed flying saucer.
What is Masonic footage?
Well, the Masons have got a hell of a lot of footage. Is
this 35mm film or
yeah, this is on 16mm and 35mm film stock. They've got a hell of a lot of footage. They've got hundreds of hours of stuff.
So what are we actually seeing when you say we're seeing Masonic images? What are we actually? Can you describe exactly?
Yeah, I mean, you see British troops advancing into a gas cloud, and then being absorbed into this flying object on the ground, and then being taken up into the air. Is
this in a war situation?
Yeah, it's Battle of Mons, First World War.
See, this is very important because right down in Dartmoor, this sort of gaseous UFO type stuff's going on near a military base in Devon.
Right.
So
okay.
this is interesting. So it's a non-corporeal, non-physical mass that they're walking into. Is that right?
That's right. It's a gaseous cloud.
Right. Okay. So clearly, it seems like there's something on the other side of it, but we don't know what that.
We don't know what that is until we're shown by the Masonic film crew what's on the other side.
Do you get to see what's on the other side?
Yeah, you do. It's basically a large flying object that's taking them into it and then absorbing them and taking them up into the sky. Okay,
and by this flying object, are there other humans who are observing this?
The Germans are all dead in this footage. They look like they've been burnt horribly from the back, being lasered or something like that from the rear.
Right, okay. Okay, so this is part of Masonic footage. Were you told this was Masonic footage? Is that how you know it's Masonic?
No, not originally. I wasn't. No,
right.
But,
so what leads you to believe that this is Masonic footage?
Because I've seen it on several additional occasions at Masonic film viewing nights. Right.
Okay. That's great. It's just because we just don't know how this comes about. So it's great to anchor that.
Yeah.
So the Masonic footage then incorporates seeing some soldiers, Battle of Mons, being absorbed into a gaseous cloud.
That's right.
And then we see also that the other side of that cloud is this ship.
A ship.
And it looks like the soldiers have been badly burnt. Do you ever see any of the aliens or the entities or the beings?
No, you don't see any in that shot.
Okay.
How are they absorbed into the craft? What do you mean by absorbed?
Into the cloud. They're running into the cloud. They're actually being absorbed into the cloud. And then the cloud's being absorbed into
like a bit of a what do they call it?
Transfiguration, is it, or something like transmutation?
I'm actually trying to think of like transportation, like in the in Star Trek, when they beam them up. Whether it was a dissociation of atoms and molecules, and they are, teleported, if you like. I'm not explaining myself.
It's not shown like that.
Right. Okay.
In other words, they don't walk through a door into a physical craft.
No, they don't. No.
Right. Okay. So you're being shown the dinosaur, the ET, the dinosaur landing, being bred with by these reptilians. We're seeing this Mons event.
Incident, yeah.
And what else were you shown at these film shows?
We were shown the Robotron attacks footage of. The Robotron is just basically an East German van. It's nothing more than that. It's just a vehicle. But we're showing it loaded with people dressed in black polo necks, black leather jackets, charging across a field, and then the van's being machine gunned from the front, and the van's crashing, and the corpses being shown, being dragged out and burnt.
Who can we? Do you know which country we're in?
Well, the Robotron's an East German vehicle,
right? And we who is doing the shooting and?
Well, it looks British because
Right.
they're using Sterling submachine guns,
Right.
SMGs. So it's obviously a British acted incident.
Yeah. Okay, so is that a standalone image as it is, or is there anything developing from that
Not
Robotron?
really, no. We were showing other footage of animated footage, really, of
Okay.
small cars bumping into each other, rolling on their side and catching fire. Basically, it's a representation of the fact that some people will die early in life and that kind of thing,
Okay.
and some people will suffer injuries and not be paired off together. Some people won't be able to breed. I mean, it's analogous footage more than anything else. But it is indicative of quite severe mind programming
Sure.
of school children.
And were there any other kinds of movie that you were shown?
Well, the school itself was opened by great grandson of John Buchan,
Okay, who's a well-known author.
well-known author, yeah, and we were actually shown the 39 Steps,
Oh, okay. Okay.
which is quite interesting.
Indeed. So was this the extent then of the? How many hours would you be shown films for or footage for?
This stuff was being shown every Wednesday afternoon, pretty much continuously throughout the year.
Right, for a period of what, 2-3 hours, or
2 or 3 hours a day.
right? Okay. And how were people reacting to this? How were the kids and you reacting
Some people
to
were
this?
quite disturbed in that they were crying. Some people didn't want to look at it.
Yeah.
A lot of the girls were actually crying.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the footage I took offence to. Actually, I picked up the projector and manhandled it onto the ground, breaking it in the process.
Which footage caused you to do that?
It was actually the footage of the small cars bumping into each other and
Right.
catching fire. I didn't regard it as anything other than mind programming. I mean, I was reasonably intelligent. I was always in the top set at school.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I
So we've
didn't like it.
got the alien. We've got the people being killed, and we've got people being absorbed into alien craft. We've got people being shot in a wartime scenario. And was there anything else in that footage? You know, those events, those film events. Was it all a much of this muchness?
Yes, much of a muchness
Right.
in many ways. Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, that is one heck of a thing. And so, what happened then? What would happen after these filmed events? Would you be given essays to write about it? Would you be monitored
No,
about
we
how your
weren't allowed to keep-
responses?
Nobody was allowed to keep any film footage. Nobody was allowed to talk about it afterwards.
Oh, really?
We actually had people from the Ministry of Defence arrive in school and talk to us about what was being shown. They were dictating things to us. And then they started showing us cards, ID cards, showing that they were from the security services, from the Ministry of Defence.
So the Ministry of Defence is visiting a middle school in
In
Germany,
Germany.
talking about the films,
Yeah.
saying that they were from the security services. And was that to what do you think that was for?
Well, they're obviously part of the mind programming process. We were then showed passwords and passcodes
Ah.
that we had to memorise for the rest of our life.
Oh, right. And was this one password and passcode?
No, there were several actually.
And do you know what these were for?
Yes, they're how we identify ourselves to each other as friends, or within the MOD.
Throughout your life? Is that the idea? It's
That's
your
right, yes.
idea throughout.
Yeah, I
Throughout
mean,
your
we were
life.
assigned a name.
Is this everybody
or,
in the school?
The name of a ship, for example, the name of a shore base, or the name of an event.
Right.
It could be something like HMS Eurelius or something like that.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and
Exactly
Yeah.
that kind of thing, yeah.
okay. And how would these be used then? Would you use them with each other at school? Presumably not. Maybe when you're
Not
outside.
really, not at school, because we knew each other as friends at
Yeah.
school. Obviously, school kids obviously
Right.
know everybody else's name. But
Yeah. So what was your instruction then on learning these?
it's how we're identified later on in life through our work, through code words being passed along phone lines, and at meetings,
meetings with.
Ministry of Defence staff,
Right, which is something that you've had
and
throughout your
security
life.
services staff as well. Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let's pick that up in a minute or two, because there's a lot of information there, and I want to come back to it. But I'm also want to just pick you up at school again.
Yeah.
So we're at the John Buchan School. And then, so you've had, I don't know how many years you were there of this brainwashing and
2 years.
Okay, 2 years, and then what happened to you? Did you have any anomalous events whilst you were there? Let me ask first.
One, it didn't actually happen in West Germany. It happened on the Dutch coast.
Okay.
We'd been on a caravanning holiday, and we were heading north along the Dutch coast off the islands. Basically, my father was driving. I was in the rear right-hand side passenger seat. We were towing quite a large caravan.
Right.
My father and my mother had their eyes glued ahead, looking at the road. My sister was asleep, but I looked out the right-hand side window, and up in the sky I could see a red globe. Now the sun had just set on the other side.
Right.
So I'm thinking, what's this red globe? I'm kind of transfixed on this red globe in the sky.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what can it be? But from that moment on, I started having experiences of remote viewing and.
Do you mean it was could you imagine that it might have been something like a trigger for you?
Yes, it was like a trigger. Yeah. And I started to come of age as well after I saw that.
Right. So you're about 13.
I was getting on for about 13.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Did your parents see it, although they were sort of rooted? Did you say anything, or mum, dad,
No,
look?
absolutely not. They were riveted to driving the car, looking ahead, and my sister was asleep.
Right. Did you feel any physical sensation when you were observing it?
Yeah, it was kind of like being absorbed into the object.
Okay.
Visually, physically absorbed into it.
Yeah.
It was there for about 5 minutes. And then suddenly gone, nothing there at all.
And when it had gone, did you feel any reaction to it going? Did you feel like a disengagement?
Yeah, I remember asking my father if he'd actually seen it, and he hadn't. He'd seen nothing at all.
Oh, right. Okay. So, bring us forward from there, John. And I know we're just doing this in a linear fashion at the moment, but it just helps people piece together, and give an overview of.
I mean, that would be
what's
1975.
So 1975. Okay. So if we go, we're back in the John Buchan School, and was there before you left? Because presumably you left because your dad had a posting.
That's right.
Elsewhere, we'll talk about that one in a minute. But did they give you any kind of, let's call it a debriefing when you left the school?
No, not really. No.
Right. Okay.
There's previous events prior to being posted to Germany.
Okay.
Which relates to an abduction experience I had in 1970.
Right.
We'd come back from Oslo. We were actually posted to Lichfield, to the Sherwood Foresters.
Staffordshire area.
Yeah. Sherwood Foresters Regiment, where my father was Master Chef.
Right.
It was a very warm night in June. I was in bed. It was approximately 11:30 p.m. and I was reading Anna Sewell's novel Black Beauty.
Okay, lovely.
And I remember having the bedside light switched on. And the
so
main
you weren't
light
falling asleep, you were just reading?
Just reading, just flipping pages and whatever. And I noticed the bedroom door was twitching, the handle on the door was twitching up and down. And I thought, what's that? What's perhaps it's my mum coming in with some water or something like that for me, But no, it wasn't. In walked two very, very small dwarf goblin type creatures. I'm thinking to myself, what are these? Anyway, I was transfixed by them. I couldn't really react in any way. I was like absorbed into looking at them, really, really shocked about what they were.
Did you feel yourself hypnotised in a sense?
Yes, I did in a way, yes. One of them was carrying a wand-like device, and it came up to me and pressed it into my forehead, and I had an electric shock to the face.
Right.
And the next thing I remember, I'm being led along the corridor by these two dwarf entities, one on each hand.
Can you just describe them physically? What sort of height would you say they
They're
would
about
be?
3 feet tall. They're wearing a black hood, black
sort of a cape or a
type affair,
cloak thing.
down to the ground, with very short feet, very short legs.
And the hood they were wearing, the hood,
very
was
swarthy, very rough-looking faces.
Were they sort of flesh tones? Their faces?
Yeah, very swarthy flesh tones.
So was were they human looking at all, or in the face?
Like a dwarf, actually. Yeah, it's depicted in Lord of the Rings. I mean, I'd not read Lord of the Rings at the time. I wasn't aware the book existed.
Yes. Okay.
Not until a later date.
So how did you feel? So here you are being, because you wouldn't be very old. What would you be? I can't remember where you are now. Would you be 8
I'd
or
be
something?
about 8 years old. Yeah.
So probably, well, you'd be taller probably than they are, but
Right.
still not hugely tall compared to them. So.
I remember being led downstairs by the arms, being led out the front door. And the last thing I remember about the actual abduction event itself was being led through the front door and outside, and that's literally where that part of the memory ends.
Right. And when you say through, did you go through it, or was it opened and then you went through it?
I don't know. I just
don't know.
remember being broadcast through the door.
Oh, okay.
Me.
Yeah.
That's the best way I can put it. The next thing I remember is being in some kind of underground cavern with them, and these two dwarfs speaking in a very sort of broad Derbyshire, Staffordshire accent.
What, the dwarves were speaking?
Yeah, in a really broad accent.
Wow. Okay.
And in front of me was an alien object, very, very flattened, grey, clay-like object, but like a banana about 7 feet long, very, very flat though.
I mean, how was that positioned? Was it on the floor?
It was on a plinth in front of me, literally where I was looking.
I mean, could you see it? Was there lighting in this cavern at all?
Yeah, it was backlit with sort of very, very a flame effect backlighting to the walls.
And was there anybody else in this cavern space?
Only the two dwarfs.
And yourself. Okay, so...
And they said, don't touch the alien object. But like a stupid fool that I was, I actually went up to it and I put my right hand on it.
Did they tell you why not to touch it?
Because they said you'll die if you touch it. Anyway, like a fool, I touched it. And I remember being flash programmed in an instant with all my life's future ahead of me.
So did you touch it just with your fingers, or did you have your full
flat palm of my hand?
Flat palm of your hand. So it was like an instant download.
Instant download, yeah. My future. It left me in a very distressed state.
Have you any sort of sense of how long that contact lasted with the object?
No more than a minute.
Right. And were you aware of any reaction or response from these two entities?
Well, they said that, well, you'll now die for touching the object. Next thing I remember, I was awake on the lawn outside the house, and it was daylight. Okay,
so and I take it you'd gone out and you'd got your pyjamas on and everything, and your pyjamas were still on, and
my pyjamas were on, but they were on back to front.
Ah, okay.
They're done up back to front with the buttons at the back, and the
trousers back to front as well.
Back to front as well.
Right, so that must have been a shock.
Yes, it was. It was a shock to find myself on damp grass.
Was there any mark on your hand at all? Your palm where you touched?
There weren't any marks on me at the time, no.
Right, okay. So, and then you were able to get back inside, okay? And or was it a shock?
I was found by my parents outside. They obviously were rather surprised to find me outside the house asleep rather than inside in my bed.
Yeah, and on wet ground as well. And had the house been locked?
It appeared to have been locked, yeah.
Right, okay. Well, that is amazing. So, just a question about that download. Do you recognise any of your life from what you saw flash before your mind in that fast? Are you able to recognise any of the things that have happened to you so far?
Yes and no. It's very, very difficult to access that memory. Yeah. But because I've developed skills in remote viewing and that kind of psychic, witchcrafty type area, I've been able to broadcast forward up to about 2036.
And does that mean you've been able to remote view generally forward?
Yes.
Okay.
And the ancient past as well. I used to really enjoy remote viewing ancient Greek history. Okay. And ancient Greek battles with the Persians and that kind of thing.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah. So is there anything from the remote viewing, because I want to also go back to the Norway thing, I want to catch up with that for a minute, but just before we go back to that, on the remote viewing side, that you thought was, wow, that's really amazing, say around the 2012 time or anything like that, that sticks in your mind?
2012 to 2014, there are a lot of images I've got, up to about 2017 actually, of that are really analogous images. They're an analogy for perhaps what's going to happen to me.
Right.
Unfortunately, I get the image of my own death this year, actually, in 2012.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, in approximately 24th of October, or November or December, something like that. It depends. Each time I've remote viewed, it's slightly different.
Right. And is it always this year?
It's always this year, yeah.
So one of the reasons that I wanted us to speak to John, I'll give it a...
Does your head in.
Yes, one of the reasons I wanted to get John to give us an interview is because he has some amazing... It cross references just about everything from mind control to my labs to the ET to control by pharmaceutical means, and he is also under what's called a watching brief. I hadn't heard that term before.
As he's mentioned, a couple of our AMMACH witnesses are under a certain list.
Well, it's very interesting because John says that he was shown by the MOD some years ago, way before he knew the names of people like Andrew Johnston and Sasha Christie, that they were on already a blacklist. And this would be back in the 1980s, as far as I understand that. We get confirmation from John about the timings, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. And the blacklist simply means that they have a level of information that's allowed. They'll never know the information behind the information about them that is known. So
this is not like a blacklist, it's a level blacklist?
It's a level black, yes. He was talking about all the levels of different colours that go up to make levels of information available.
So and what are those colours?
To be honest, I'd have to ask John again, but he was talking about magenta, green, red, whatever. A whole raft of colours, but black being the most basic, basically. Yeah. So it means that those people like, say, Andrew Johnson and Sasha are allowed information only to what's available in the public domain. They will never have access to secret stuff or secret stuff about them and their lives, yeah. Which I think is very interesting because Andrew Johnston, I think he's a great researcher and has done so much on 9/11, and he sent a lot of information about 7/7 and 9/11 to every British police force, so they could not say they didn't have knowledge of this, yeah. And also the whole raison d'etre behind it, and he did himself have a couple of CID people come to see him and interview him. He's a dad of 2, and he keeps a very low profile, but I thought it was just interesting that he did, have that event. So
yeah, I think that from my point of view, I'm very interested in the Oslo connection, because Oslo was where the Germans were going to launch their nuclear attack on Britain, on the United States.
Yeah. Well, what's quite interesting about the Oslo,
I've talked to other people in UFO case where they go through military mind control in US military bases, yeah. in Norway and Sweden.
Well, what's interesting about this place where his dad was based, where he was in fact aide-de-camp, which was really a whole different job. He was normally top cook for the army, and I'm not saying that's not a high job, but to become suddenly aide-de-camp, I thought that was quite a leap. Maybe I'm misjudging how the army works. Anyway,
well, that's how John Irwin was brought in. He was allowed to subtly serve food and brought into the plush side of things.
Very, very interesting.
It seems to be a level that you're brought into the confidence of the
yes.
officers.
And what John has said about where they were based was that it was a signal corps, but it was an intelligence unit. Well, why aren't we surprised about that?
Now, what's the name of the base again?
Yeah, you've got me there. Yeah. Colcas. Pretty sure it was Colcass, with a K.
I'm sure Dr. Ronnie Kilda would be able to give us some.
That'd be very interesting. In fact, the building and the whole thing is still there, but it's now a museum. It's actually a museum. It's got lots to it, lots of underground bits and all the rest of it, and it's now a museum housing things like parts of V2 bombers, rockets.
Yeah, there's a number of museums which are used to keep an inactive base active.
Very interesting.
Anyway, this is our little interlude between the parts. So
Tea-break.
I'll get behind the cameras and we'll wait for the ice cream truck to come back. Maybe buy ourselves an ice cream. Okay.
See you
The nature of these statements, we cannot explain or verify these claims at the time of recording. As Shelton's statements concern mass abduction of British troops in World War I, issues in the police, the MOD, and the health service, perhaps there are others who can shed some light on his claims. Shelton also states he has remote viewed his own death in a matter of weeks. So this interview was arranged under some haste and urgency. It is presented in 3 parts. The interview is by Joanne Summerscales, with some interruption off camera by myself.
Hello and welcome to another AMMACH interview here at Avondale Studios. We are most fortunate to have with us a lovely gentleman who's come all the way from the East Midlands. Welcome please, John Shelton, who has some very interesting things to tell you. John, welcome to our studios, and please, you've got a whole life full of information of all kinds. It cuts through the military, through the ET, through NHS abuse, and I really want us to start right at the beginning. So, John, do you mind if we start? You were a littly and...
Right. I was born in December 1962 into a military family.
Right.
My father at the time was a chef in the Army Catering Corps. I travelled mostly across Europe, Norway, Belgium and West Germany.
Right.
I had my first anomalous experience in about 1965, just prior to us going to Oslo, Norway. We were actually stationed in Arborfield near Reading, just north of London.
So does this make you just short of 3 years old then, John?
That would be about right, yes. I was out walking with my mother. She left me outside to play, and I had a very strange experience where I experienced a very high-pitched sound around me.
Right.
And I blacked out. And when I came to, my right leg
John Shelton provides remarkable and radical new information. This affects 3 main areas: the Ministry of Defence, the Health Service, and the upper levels of Freemasonry. As with all AMMACH witnesses, they give their statements freely. But by the very...
Oh, okay.
some workmen were summoned, and they had to actually take equipment out and come and demolish the top of the wall and actually release my leg. There was a second incident. I was actually playing in a sandpit, very much adjacent to the property we lived in, the married soldiers' quarters.
Again, are you around the same age group?
Yes, I'd be about the same sort of time. I remember playing in the sandpit, and then there being another high-pitched tone and blacking out, and I suddenly found myself inside a storage cupboard in the kitchen.
At home now?
Yeah, at home, yes. I had absolutely no idea I got there. It's clearly I hadn't walked there, because I'd literally blacked out and then come to instantly.
Yeah. And as a little child, would you normally go inside and into this cupboard? Well, was
No,
it just an
absolutely
ordinary
not.
cupboard, a
No,
broom
it
cupboard,
was
or
storage cupboard where food was kept in the
okay.
kitchen.
So you'd have you would never go in there
No,
normally. Is
no,
that
not at all. No.
okay? And how were you found in that?
Leg was embedded in the wall from the calf downwards in a very low partition wall, brick wall.
So how low are we talking this wall, John?
About 2 feet high,
Okay.
maybe 3 feet at the most.
And had you been walking near this wall when you?
Yes, I'd been right next to it. It had been on my right hand side.
Was your mother in the location, in the vicinity at the time?
No.
Right. So you had been with her. Is that
I
right?
yeah, that's right. I'd been with her. Yeah.
You'd been with her. You had this blacking out, and you woke up with your right leg. Did you say? Sorry.
Yes, right
Yeah.
leg cemented into the wall.
Right. Gosh. Were you in pain?
No, I wasn't. The wall that was actually moulded around my leg.
Right.
It had gone literally through cement and brick.
So
it was
were you in a situation to actually see the rest of your leg or your foot? the
Yeah, I
other
could
side?
see my other leg on the other side. Some workmen had to be called to demolish the wall.
I mean, were you seen by a passerby? Did the police come? What happened? How did that?
I was spotted by my father.